All right. Well, we are going to get started with our topic at hand, the AI divide. Again, kind of our moniker that we've been going with is artificial intelligence reshapes lives unequally. We're going to explore the gaps in AI literacy, policy, access impacting creativity, productivity, and labor. And we're going to discuss who wins and who loses in this AI era. So with us today, I'll be your moderator. I'm Lamont Dow, currently in the renewable space and in utilities. My utilization of AI is a bit limited, not extensive, but we got some subject matter experts on the panel today who deal with this on a day-to-day. So I'll start with Brother Chadwick Leonard. Go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about just your career and your experience with AI.
Yeah, good evening, brothers. Chad Leonard. As far as my career background, I've been lobbying for about 5 years, dealing with education policy. Now I'm dealing with growth management and conservation policy. Got into the AI game about 2.5 years ago. Somebody told me about it. I didn't even know what Chat GPT was. And then from then on, just continued to learn, finding different use cases for the field that I'm in, lobbying, as well as some of the nonprofit work that I do, as well as some of the electoral and political organizing work that I do. So just trying to apply it in a way that makes sense, apply it in a way that makes things more efficient, and actually add some good to kind of the work we've been doing in those different segments. So excited to talk about these things. I try to be as versed as possible in national and international artificial intelligence policy when it comes to things like the EU AI Act, with President Trump's new AI America's AI Action Plan, geopolitics of it all. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. So excited to talk about all of those things with everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. All right. Appreciate you, brother. Also on the panel, we have Brother Robert Smith. Brother, you mind go ahead and introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Robert Smith. My line name was Weird Science, so things might get a little crazy when I start talking, right? But I also been calling myself the Machine King when I used to make films. I got into films and stuff. And one night I was looking at some storytelling tools, and I found this thing called GPT-3. It was like 2022 into 2022 or so, right? So then I started really getting into this GPT-3 thing, and I started telling people at work about it. I worked at Deloitte as a cybersecurity consultant. I worked in cybersecurity. But as I was using it, I'm realizing like, yo, like, it ain't no way that like what I'm doing at my job wouldn't be done better by using this technology. So I started using it at work, recording people on the low, entering little like commands in there in order to get solutions and stuff like that. And I was like really impressed. So I started doing all sorts of experiments, and snowballed. I ended up starting my own AI research lab, and getting laid off from Deloitte, by the way. But I ended up starting my own AI research lab, becoming a founder at my AI research lab, and I got a bunch of projects going on. Amongst them is my job opportunity management platform, Hey, You're Hired. Another platform that we call Talk Advantage Pro. It's a conversational intelligence platform. Like right now, you only use AI like after the meeting or whatever. Like imagine if AI could help you make decisions while you're in the process or whatever, right? So we're innovating on a whole bunch of different levels, whole bunch of different projects. I hire some guys through Upwork in order to work for my lab, and everybody's on board and we locked in creating projects. But I stay on the edge of AI by making sure that I'm tapped in with all the influencers, all the labs, all the technologies. I'm always trying stuff. But I consider myself an AI maximalist. I believe that you can augment everything in your life by inserting AI into it. And I've inserted AI into every aspect of everything that I do, from content creation to storytelling to building my business to managing my business. When I worked at Deloitte, there was a lot of talk about having AI officers to like to help run the company or whatever. Yo, I was already doing it at the crib, right? I had already architected that out. Technology finally caught up, and that's what I'm doing with my lab right now. AI officers, giving them tools, giving them their own email addresses. So like I'm really a bit of a fanatic when it comes to this sort of stuff. And again, I try to stay tapped in and try to make sure that I'm doing things to not only teach people, but because one thing that keeps me up at night with this whole thing is that there are people out there that are doing what I'm doing and they're gatekeeping the knowledge, right? They aren't sharing with you how you can capture your family's history, and grandma's stories can be passed down to your daughter who's only 1 years old, and grandma about to pass away. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of ways that this technology can be used for good. And what I'm seeing is the technology being gatekept and the technology being used for nefarious reasons. Working in cybersecurity, you know that eventually the technology was going to be used for cyber attacks, and that's happened. With Claude Code specifically, one guy able to extort like 13 companies using the technology. So that's a little bit about who I am. Back to you, Lamont.
No, oh man, that's you hit on a couple topics that we really want to kind of deep dive into later on in the discussion. So, but just for the sake of the audience and the people who will watch this, I just want to quickly define a couple of things. So, with that, when we say the general public says, "Hey, let's use AI." Me, as a pretty much of a novice, I'm associating AI with ChatGPT, Grok, and maybe VO. Those are the things. I'm a novice. I'm not as versed as you guys. I know VO can make some videos. ChatGPT can answer some questions that Google, that a little more customizable than Google, and Grok is just tied to my X account, right? Let's define what AI is and what AGI is. From your perspective, I guess maybe Chad, you can get the AI, and then Rob, if you can kind of expand on that and get into what AGI is.
Can we do one thing? Can we oh man, I didn't mean to do that. Can we throw something else in there? Generative AI, Chad?
Yes,
Because there should be a distinction there, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get what are those definitions, because I personally roll them all in together.
Yeah.
And that's not the proper way to view this, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in the simplest terms, artificial intelligence can really be defined as machines doing things that humans were only thought to be done for a certain amount of time. Um, AI, artificial intelligence, is basically a set of algorithms that have been trained in a certain way to go throughout a certain process, right? And we have different types of what you call models, right? And models are a set of algorithms that have been trained for a specific purpose or have been trained to recognize patterns in a certain way, given input data, given training data in those ways. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, I know you mentioned a lot of what Rob was talking about, generative AI, right? That means is an AI that has been trained in order to create new data sets, right? Whether that's pictures, numbers, calculations, those things. Um, but AI is used in a lot of different ways. AI is currently being used in order to find new genomes and to map human DNA. AI is being used in order to one of the simple ways, right, to detect fraud. On your cards and all of those things. So AI, the creation of the algorithms and those patterns and the recognition of patterns, that can be used in a lot of different ways, and models can be trained and fine-tuned to do a lot of different things. When you're talking about chat GPT, Grok, all of those things, those are called large language models, right? So large language model is something that has been trained on a large amount of text in order to recognize patterns, and then in order to be generative and put out those new data sets. So and Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong and jump in if I'm skipping things, but basically, let's say you upload a sentence, right? So it takes that sentence, it gives each word in that sentence a numerical value, And then based on that numerical value, it looks at the relation between the numerical value of those other things, right? And so they basically call that a transformer. And so what that does is it helps it learn what the difference between bat as in something you swing and bat as in an actual
Flying
a
animal.
rodent, a flying rodent. And so because it uses that context based on the numerical thing, so when Chat GPT is giving you outputs and all of those things, it's giving you the next best numerical value, which is a word based on what you've already put in, based on the context that you've created, in your prompt. So I'll stop there, and I'll let Rob, kind of augment what I'm saying if I missed anything or if I misconstrued anything, and go to the AGI stuff.
So I would say that that when you talk about generative AI in the early days, people compared it to something, and I think it's the simplest way to understand what you got going on right now, and that's smart autocomplete, right? Smart autocomplete. You enter one thing and then it completes it, right? And like Chad just said, patterns. Everything with these machines is just patterns. But here's the thing: a conversation is just a pattern. That's all it is. You say something, I say something. You say something, I say something. If you curse at me with an exclamation mark, the pattern for that is me to either get angry or me to like shrivel up. You know what I mean? Like it's a certain pattern that the machines are able to learn through the input and the output. And that was really the big jump from the GPT-3 to Chat GPT. When you got introduced to Chat GPT, you saw it inside of an interface where you just ask for something and you get it at the top. It was way beyond that general intelligent autocomplete. It felt like it, right? But that's really all it was. Because if you type something in, it was just looking to just complete that for you. You know what I'm saying? Even though they had a lot of people in Africa that had to look at a lot of really bad stuff that drove them insane in order to get it, so you couldn't like type in something crazy and getting something crazy to come out. But so it's responding to you all happy and gleefully and everything like that. So it's really just a really intelligent autocomplete. And when I say intelligence, I mean that it understands humanity as far as the semantic value, like Chad just said, but it has such a large grasp of so much information. Like we only learn so many words a day, right? Every word that I know is from either something I heard or something that I read or something that I had to experience to know that new word and what it meant, right? Same thing for all of us. But these machines have the whole of all these things, all these different languages, and then understand the relationships, like he said, the bat and the bat. So, like Chad said about the bat and the bat. So that's where it seems like a super intelligence. Right. And that super intelligence, people have given a threshold to, okay, well, how smart can these things get?
There's no limit on that. If you're, go ahead, my bad.
They've given it this like label limit, Lamont. They've given it this label limit that you mentioned earlier, which is the limits of one person, and they call it AGI. That limit is now you've reached the top of what the alphas could do. So now it's beyond that. So now you're in this whole nother level, and this is AGI. And I'll let Chad go ahead and take over the AGI explanation.
Hold on, real quick.
My bad.
Before we get to AGI, let me try to understand. So again, back to this, the training of. So again, I like the example that you said. What you've learned comes from your individual experiences and your senses, right? I've seen, I've heard, I've felt. This can, with I mean, a pretty much almost nearly unlimited, well, not unlimited, but a very broad data set, is able to pick up these patterns and continually learn and be trained on how to engage with different like you said, different prompts or different questions. Like, hey, if I'm in Indonesia, if I say this word, the most likely scenario is that an Indonesian is going to say this in response. I wouldn't know that. I've never been in Indonesia, but this AI is able to quickly, with all this information and all this data, is able to pretty much come in and answer my question or respond to me or autofill what I would do in Indonesia or in Zimbabwe or wherever the case may be. It has the data. It's been trained on what the response is, as opposed to
it sees the Indonesia, that's the
yeah,
place.
right.
It sees these different things these different keywords that you mentioned in your sentence. That is the context. That is the context. That is a part of your prompt. That's the meat and potatoes. Okay, now we own this Indonesia. Okay,
Right.
now we own what we gonna wear in Indonesia. Okay, now we own where to shop for shoes in Indonesia. So it starts to have all this context that you give it, and from all that context is how it's able to narrow down to understand exactly what you want from it. If I hope that answers your question.
You did. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely did. Hold on. We got a couple things in here. Let's see here. Transparency and accountability. Who reigns in the limitless power? Ooh.
Yeah.
Tim, that's
Y'all can talk on that later, but I was just thinking about
that's the first topic. But let's get to it. But let's go through the AGI, and then that is the meat and potatoes of this conversation, bro. But onto the AGI topic. So human capacity. It sounds like AI is almost at a place where it's past the data that we can feed it.
Not really.
No.
I wouldn't say it's past the data that we can feel it. So when we talk about AGI, we're talking about like Rob said, it's a labeled threshold. And that threshold is basically saying AI now doesn't need any more inputs for us to put in it, right? It can kind of generalize in a way where it doesn't need what you call like a human in the loop or a human on the loop, right? Which means a human is there to either train it, supervise it, label data or not label data, give it all the inputs and all of those things, and where it can kind of reason in things for itself within itself, right? And so when we talk about AGI, people want to say, self-awareness, all of those types of things, but in general, when we're talking about data, that means that now this AI is in a place where it can generalize, just like we generalize, just like we can make decisions, right? And Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I also say too, there are limits, right? And the limits may not be data limits. So like one thing you'll see, and I'm glad y'all mentioned Indonesia and Africa and those places. One thing you'll see is there's a certain amount of cultural context, right? That has to go in the AI, right? And so when you look at, let's say when you look at Chat GPT, when you look at, Meta AI and all of those places, all, they basically scrape the internet, they scrape books, they use books and do all of those things, but those are from specific data sets, right? And we know that what we're talking about, we know that there can be an imbalance on what's publicly available, right? Based on what's actually available, right? And so one of the things that they're doing in Africa is they're training models and they're fine-tuning models with more cultural references and more cultural insight into it, so that when you are in Africa, when you are in Indonesia, you can say a word. Like if I say dog right now, there's no dogs here, but y'all know if I'm talking to one of y'all, that's just a term. You know what I'm saying? That's just a term of endearment. So it's things like that that there's still space and there's still areas to grow for AI for sure.
Let me get to Tim, we're gonna deal with your question. Tony, Blunt, I think this is a good question to intervene because it's relevant to the definition is how does it resolve, like what is right to AGI or AI? What is there a moral compass? Because that's the question, is like, hey, if you put in something that's incorrect, what exactly is incorrect? and how does it resolve that?
I'll do you one better. Let me ask you a question. Would you push my grandma in the bushes to save the universe?
Yeah.
Would you push my grandma in the bushes? Yeah. Would
Me?
you, Lamont? Would you? My grandma need to be pushed in the bushes in order to save the bros, their daughters, everybody, the world.
You didn't say how hard, so yes, I'll push very softly and I'll roll so she land on me. Yes.
most of these large language models that say that they might freak out with that thought. And that's a dilemma that you can ask these machines, because they are trained to we don't want to hurt nobody. We don't want to hurt nobody. Like that's what the train. We don't want to hurt nobody. That's like a situation where it's a little bit of hurt, it's a little sacrifice for a little bit of hurt for the greater good. Like that's like a contradiction for these machines. So those are questions that you can put together and ask these machines, that we don't have to talk in concept and practice, that when you get off the line, you can literally ask it what I just asked you. And that's a dilemma that'll get you some interesting answers depending on what models you use.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question changes with different models, I would say.
Okay. On that note, who is the master model? Because that basically whoever designs the model that's most utilized or has the most complete data, or even the one that's pushed by a government entity, it sounds like the model is a representative of the moral compass of the creator of that model.
Yes, yeah.
Because we seen this issue with Gemini, right? When it started making George Washington black and all that other stuff.
Well, but here's the thing: is when you put it in the context, right, of like morality, right? That you kind of mixing a bunch of things up.
Okay.
In my opinion, only because a model is trained, right? A model is trained to do a certain thing. There is no master model. Now, they're all using similar data sets. They're all using different ways to train it. Somebody can be using reinforcement training. Somebody can be using supervised training, unsupervised training. They're all trained in different ways, right? And they're all using similar data sets, but they're all using kind of different data sets at the same time. Another part of it is there are certain what you call weights, which teaches it how to make decisions about one thing or the other, right? And that's still statistical when we talk about it. The morality comes, and we're going down a rabbit hole.
I can pull us out of this, because Anthony just said, "Hey, forget morality, just."
So let me say also too that when it comes to morality, right? Like our courts gauge our morality, right?
Correct.
That's safe to say, right?
Yes.
Got you. All right. So if the courts could judge the morality, depending on what lawyer you got, that depends on, right?
Absolutely. It depends on the judge, the policy,
but mostly the lawyer. So when you're talking about language, bro, language can't like if somebody is really good at language, it could be, you can squirm a lot through language, right? And because of that, because you can use language in a way that can get around, it can't be protected, bro. They can put all the safety or whatever they want on it, but it really can't be protected, right? So with that said, you ask about morality. If you have this moral, this AI with a good heart, it knows right from wrong, right? How do you then tell stories? How do you tell a horror story with an AI that has a good moral heart?
Yeah.
So
But to be clear, I did not put morality in it. I just said correct and incorrect. I did not say right,
you're right.
or wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said correct or incorrect, and I was very specific about saying correct or incorrect because I didn't want to get us on a morality battle of right and wrong. I'm saying correct, like if information has been put in the ChatGPT to say the sky is green, the sky's green. And then there are SEO content out there saying the sky's green, the sky's green. And then there's additional marketing advertisement out there saying the sky's green. And then there's people out there putting in their paperwork and their essays, the sky's green. When I go to ask, is the sky green? And tell me a story to teach my children the color of the sky, it's going to give me something to, right? And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about correct and incorrect. When it is learned incorrect information, how does it, because what Chad said earlier was, we're getting to a point that a human is no longer needed, right? We don't need to input any more information. That's what Chad said. And that's what brought up that question. If you're saying we're to a point that we can take the human out because we no longer need human analysis, the AI is smart enough to analyze right, wrong, incorrect, and take right and wrong out, analyze correct and incorrect, and then be able to fix and resolve it. That's ultimately the question that I'm asking.
That's a good point.
So I think that when we talk about the enormity of the information that they take in order for an AI to believe, or in order for an AI to come to the conclusion that the sky is green, somebody would have to be saying the sky is green since literature has existed, right? Because we're talking about millions and 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 millions to billions, right? Of parts of information, right? And so in order for it to come out to that would have to be proven, not just said because it's great, that would have to come up so many times that it would come to that conclusion, right? You would literally have to put it everywhere. Like you would have to put it in scientific journals. You would have to put it in stories. You would have to put it, like if you ask AI right now, what is a unicorn, right? It'll tell you what a unicorn is. If you ask, where can I buy a unicorn, right? It's going to either tell you some fairy tale, or it's going to tell you unicorns haven't been proven to be real. I don't know where you can buy one. But in situations that you're talking about, when we're talking about correct and incorrect, the reason why why AGI is at least 5 to 10 years away right now is because they can still make bad predictions, right? Depending on how it's trained, it can still make, and they call them hallucinations. Sometimes the AI will make something up in order to meet your prompt, because and that's a hallucination. And when you see that, you can say, well, that's not absolutely right. And then it'll go back and say, well, you know what? That wasn't right. Blah, blah, blah. And it'll try to give you something else. So it doesn't always get everything right. That's why you can't be what they call, you can't have a mindset of AI exceptionalism, to where you automatically think everything AI is doing is right. Everything it says is factual, because it's still a machine. You know what I'm saying? And it can still make statistical mistakes and give you hallucinations and all of those things. So you got to check that information. You got to understand what you're talking about and understand what you're looking for. That's why I tell everybody, AI don't make me a scientist. AI doesn't make me Albert Einstein. I can't go talk about quantum mechanics just because I can tell AI, hey, tell me everything about quantum mechanics. I read it and then come and talk to y'all, right? That doesn't make me a quantum mechanic. So you still had, now Albert Einstein can go and say, here's the theory of relativity. Here's how I want you to build on the theory of relativity. And so I can't do that. Even if I know what quantum mechanics is, I don't understand the theory of relativity in that way. You know what I'm saying? And that's just me. Now, if I'm having a conversation with AI and I'm thinking that I know what I'm talking about, that's a whole different ball of wax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I got you. Tim, you have something?
Not a question, maybe, as I know it relates to social media, when there's misinformation or things put into the process that aren't true, there's a disclaimer put on there, Twitter, Facebook, that's saying that, hey, this may not be a true statement, or this may not be true to whatever cause. So I'm wondering if ChatGPT has anything along those, or not ChatGPT, but AI in general has anything along those lines, as millions and millions of thoughts go into these systems, that we can put mechanisms in place or things, processes in place to say this may not be true. And in that, is there anything to kind of help that process?
Yeah, on every chatbot thing, you got something like a thumbs up, thumbs down thing where you could like, they want you to rate the feedback that you get, and they encourage you to do that, especially in the early days. Not so much now because you know it's not that bad or whatever. But a lot of what y'all talking about has been kind of like taken care of like through other different methods. I don't want to get too deep into it, but an agentic approach. So it used to be you ask an AI question, then they give you an answer, right? But then it was reasoning, so they learned to like have the machines to kind of spend time thinking, because they learned that if you spend time thinking, if you let the machine spend time thinking, it'll give you a better answer. And then the agentic approach is okay, Robert gives an answer, but Lamont checks Robert's answer. You know, like, so that ends up helping the machine. Like, oh, Robert, maybe you need to go back and work it out. This don't look right. So that helps the machine. So on a like scaled up, that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to say, and then I'll be quiet so we can get to the hand, but you can see this stuff take place through stuff like Grok. So when they upgraded Grok, it was giving out how to make mustard gas or something like that, right? Then they went out to fix it. Then Trump got mad because it was saying something about what, the Epstein papers or something like that. Like, oh no, who was the biggest liar in all the media? Who had the most falsehood? Donald Trump. And that went viral. So they had to fix the weights on that. So but it wants to go to truth because the truth is out there and it's logical. And that is a part of what makes people like Jeffrey Hinton afraid, because it's going to logical, right? It's going to what we generally believe to be the truth. However, eventually it's going to get to, yo, why do we need them around here? They breathe. Why do we need these mouth breathers around? That's what Jeffrey Hinton on. So I just wanted to say that.
That's good.
I got you.
Go ahead, Blunt.
You got something?
No, I mean, I follow what y'all saying, and I think, you know, in a general sense, especially across common areas, right? I can follow that. And I've been using ChatGPT for a while, right? And I work in the financial industry, and I use it for a lot of things, right? Anything that I can use ChatGPT